first time in 7 through 8 years against John Cena in an incredible first match. The first match was so good between The Rock and John Cena. The sequel, The Rock and John Cena Twice in a Lifetime, had its purpose completely defeated. There was no purpose behind it. There was no reason for it happening other than the fact John Cena wanted to redeem himself. A lot of people felt that he had to redeem himself as the torch carrier of this new generation. Either him or Randy Orton had to be the guy to do that. He beats The Rock, but I mean, the first match was so good. The second match was just so stupid, and you could tell The Rock wasn't into it. But I think, even with how The Rock was not into the feud with John Cena, he would be more into a feud with Brock Lesnar because it's a bigger name for The Rock to face. They are both legends. Brock Lesnar had ended the streak of The Undertaker at WrestleMania, of course, preceding this match if it were to happen, and The Rock obviously would have more of a reason to defend the honors of all these legends like the Ultimate Warrior, the Macho Man Randy Savage, legends who have preceded his legacy, and then, of course, legends like The Undertaker who had his streak broken at the hands of Brock Lesnar, and The Rock becomes the one. I saw a poster a number of years ago, a fan had thrown up his fan art saying The Rock defeats the Undertaker, the dead one, to become the one, and I think that was a pretty interesting tagline. A lot of people have their own scenarios and thoughts when it comes to The Rock and Brock Lesnar, and I really appreciate the diversity in the way of conversation that fans are throwing out there and putting out there about people like The Rock and Brock Lesnar and these opponents that they could have. I know a couple of years ago, a lot of people were throwing around suggestions for opponents for Brock Lesnar to have. Some people were saying Randy Orton. Some people were saying Kane. Some people were saying The Big Show. Some of these predictions fell through with. Of course, we saw Brock Lesnar and The Big Show a couple of years ago, preceding, I think, Brock Lesnar and The Undertaker's match happening at WrestleMania 30. We saw matches like Brock Lesnar and probably, who was the other guy that was in that list? I can't remember now that actually happened. But the thing is, some of these predictions actually happened that fans were making, and who's to say that a prediction of The Rock and Brock Lesnar that fans are making now doesn't have a chance of happening? I know there are people out there that exist that feel this match, has no purpose. There's really no reason to put behind this match for having happened, but just like I said, think of the morale that goes with The Rock and Brock Lesnar. Think of the diversity in the way of conversation on social media, on sites like Facebook, Twitter, and especially Instagram. The cell phone apps will be blowing up with photos and videos. Can you imagine how entertaining videos would be posted by The Rock on sites like Instagram and Twitter? They would be so funny. If Chris Jericho can go on Facebook and post a video about how he felt insulted when Dean Ambrose tore up his let-up jacket, which really became a trademark of Jericho's career for years. Just imagine what The Rock would say if Brock Lesnar did something that he found insulting towards his legacy, or The Rock did something that Brock Lesnar felt insulting towards his legacy as a UFC fighter and former UFC champion and football player. That would be amazing. Also to mention here, you can throw this in too, not that it really matters, but they are both previous football players of previous teams. Of course, we have Brock Lesnar, the Minnesota Vikings, and The Rock, of course, with the Miami Hurricanes. So they are both football players. There's so much of a history that exists between The Rock and Brock Lesnar. The tale of the tape certainly speaks for itself. They are multi-time winners of the championship. The Rock, an 8-time champion. Brock Lesnar, 3-4-time champion. We had NCAA division championships for Brock Lesnar, one throughout his career. He was 33-0 in high school. They had both played football. I mean, the tale of the tape and just the status in the way of height and weight advantages really don't say much, because there really isn't much of a height or weight advantage. I think Brock Lesnar and The Rock, I think The Rock gives up about 35 through 40 pounds in a weight differentiality between Brock Lesnar and a couple of inches with height. I think Brock Lesnar is a little bit taller than The Rock, so they are pretty much match for match with height and weight. So the tale of the tape, not much of a difference, but it certainly speaks for itself, and that's more of a reason for us to have this match happening between The Rock and Brock Lesnar. And yeah, I'm not lying when I say I'm the biggest Rock or Brock Lesnar supporter and fan out there that you'll probably hear on YouTube, on anyone's YouTube channel on the internet. I don't think anyone's preached about The Rock and Brock Lesnar's dream match as much as what I have, and other dream matches, of course, that fit within that category, usually around WrestleMania time every year. I love to talk about dream matches and the chances of matches like Sting and The Undertaker happening, which is probably the biggest dream match out of any dream match I've talked about. Stone Cold Steve Austin and CM Punk is another match that probably has a chance of happening too. There's nothing really wrong with either Punk or Austin really to have this match, even if it was just 10 minutes they got in the ring and wrestled. I mean, there are certain matches people would just buy the pay-per-view for, or just the network subscription for, just to see. The one match, that you always talk about, that you give anything to see, and that has never happened before. So I understand, why there's so much conversation about this dream match or that dream match. But the bottom line is, in the words of Stone Cold Steve Austin, I think it's time to give us these matches. It's about damn time, and we've waited long enough to see matches like The Rock and Brock Lesnar. Yeah, we've seen a match before between The Rock and Brock Lesnar, but that was when The Rock was pretty much just making a name for himself. I think he was going away, actually, to film The Scorpion King that summer. So he lost to Brock Lesnar. But I mean, Brock Lesnar was just an upstart talent. Just think of the popularity of both of these wrestlers 15 years later. And just the morale of this match, the significance of this match. It wouldn't even have to be for a championship, which would make it that much more awesome if it was for a championship. But I don't think that it needs to be for a championship. It just has to have a good storyline. It just has to be kept entertaining. And God knows Paul Heyman has been called a creative genius. There's a reason why he's been called a creative genius, and which is why I would hope that he would have a lot of significance in this feud between The Rock and Brock Lesnar and a lot of creative direction and influence on what could possibly happen, because he is just so smart, and Heyman could make it work if it happened between The Rock and Brock Lesnar. I mean, The Rock has insulted Paul Heyman before. We saw that in the CM Punk Rock feud, but just imagine The Rock insulting Paul Heyman in a Rock-Brock Lesnar feud and how far the storyline could go and how far it could be taken. I mean, we would have half the fans for Brock Lesnar, half the fans for The Rock. They would be both fan favorites. I mean, you don't have to have one be necessarily a heel and one be a fan favorite. They could be both fan favorites, and you can let them go. You can let them tear it up like the Rock or the Brock Lesnar Goldberg match did at WrestleMania 20. Just let them go. One necessarily doesn't have to be a fan favorite, or one doesn't necessarily have to be a heel. There could be so much created from this storyline, even if it just happened once and it was one of those once-in-a-lifetime matches. That tagline could be attached to. There's so much that could be done for this feud, and I think conversation will be at an all-time high. And like I said, the most important and significant thing to come out of this, regardless of who wins, regardless of what predictions could be made or would be made about this match a couple of weeks before it would happen, the morale of WWE will be significantly boosted, and it would give us a reprieve from seeing the same thing happen over and over again, because I'm really tired of seeing history often be reiterated or repeated. Either reiterated or repeated. It gets on my nerves how we see the same 4 or 5 champions, 4 or 5 challengers, and the same 4 or 5 dream matches happening all the time with these unnecessary sequels to put a cap on the rivalry. But the thing is, we don't need to see all these caps being put on rivalries that have preceded this one. We need to see something different, either in the way of Sting and Undertaker or The Rock and Brock Lesnar. And if you don't want to put yourself out there, why not try something like The Rock and Dean Ambrose, or The Rock or this one or that one? Say The Rock and Kevin Owens. Can you imagine how entertaining that would be? The Rock and The New Day, which is something I was really let down about for WrestleMania 32. I was really hoping The Rock was going to team with the Usos to face the 3 members of The New Day for this year's WrestleMania, rather than seeing The Rock just come out and have that segment with the Wyatt family. That didn't follow through with, so there's still so much of a chance left out there for The Rock to create with, and I would be really entertained by seeing something like this happen. But I just want to see something like this happen for The Rock, because it's been a really long time since really anything creative has happened for him. The last time he wrestled actually in a legitimate match was WrestleMania 29 back in 2013, so it's been a really long time since we've seen anything creatively happen for The Rock, and I think it's about damn time something did. Because having signed a contract just to come in for WrestleMania every year is just so stupid. We need to see The Rock wrestle at least once a year in the way of an Undertaker, and keep pulling Undertaker-like appearances really to mean something to the wrestling business. If you say you're back and this is only the beginning, at least live up to what you claim. If this is only the beginning, give us another match, either with The Undertaker or Brock Lesnar. Something needs to happen. And I think The Rock and Brock Lesnar is what we are looking at, and it would be a significant way of capping off a rivalry 15 years in the making. Am I right or am I wrong? I don't think I'm wrong in having said anything I have about The Rock and Brock Lesnar. And yeah, it may sound like I'm a mark for matches like The Rock and Brock Lesnar, but the thing is, this is a match that we waited so long to see, and I think it's about damn time it happens, and we would get to a reprieve, most notably, if it did happen, because the same thing often is reiterated or repeated. And God knows I've been more than irritated enough about how history has had a tendency to repeat itself for so many years with professional wrestling. Yeah, it would feel like history would be repeating itself. I will admit that. I will go as far to say that it would feel like history would be repeating itself. But just imagine the morale and how much it would be boosted if The Rock and Brock Lesnar had a match now 15 years in the making, and just the conversation being at all-time highs throughout social media networks like Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. I mean, everybody will be talking about it, posting tribute videos for The Rock and Brock Lesnar, making their predictions, which I would be really interested in hearing. So many people for Brock Lesnar, so many people on the other hand for The Rock, and whatever way it will go, it would just be an awesome match that people would never ever forget and be talking about for a very long time. I would be definitely excited for it. It would be one of the most electrifying dream matches possibly of all time. I'm your host, Jonathan Clarke, and I will talk to you again next week. Like what you hear? Tell us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube.